Hey, welcome back to Z-Speed. Thanks for tuning in. So the question of the day is, do the stock cooling fans on the 350Z provide more air than the aftermarket Mishimoto cooling fans? And the short answer to that is, yes, I do believe so because of the CFM rating on the Mishimoto versus the stock cooling fans. We'll be going over that in a few minutes. And since we're pulling the fans out and replacing those, we're also going to go ahead and replace the thermostat because it gives us plenty of room to get in there to do that. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, stay tuned and we're going to get right on it in a second. I'll start off by saying that the Mishimoto is a very high quality aftermarket fan, and it's got a nice aluminum shroud, which is a lifetime guarantee on that. But we're talking about CFM here, which is cubic feet per minute, and that's air volume. And the Mishimoto is rated at 900 plus CFM, whereas the stock fans are rated at 1,000 to 1,500 CFM. So that's why I'm saying that the stock fans are going to push a little more airflow over your radiator than the Mishimoto, but I still think that's a great product. So to get started, we have to remove this engine cover. That'll give us a little more space to get to the thermostat. We also have to remove our intake, whether it's aftermarket or stock, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to have to remove this upper hose right here, and this reservoir will also have to be removed. And we're going to come over here and we're going to also take care of this little hose for the overflow that leads to the reservoir. We'll need to remove that, and that's quite easy as well. And then we really just have a couple 10 millimeter bolts holding the fans on. Here's one right here. Let me see if I can get a little better angle or view of it. There it is right there. And then we have one on the other side right there. So we're going to remove those two 10 millimeter bolts, and we should be able to slide it out. And we're going to also look at the electrical connections. We'll have to remove those. And it's easier for me to show you on the new fan right here. These are the two on the bottom down here, not up here on top. We don't even have to touch those on top of the fan, but these two right here down at the left-hand corner of the passenger side corner, these two have to be unclipped from underneath, and then we are ready to slide the fan right out. So it's not going to be too difficult to get them unplugged. There's just a couple little tabs on the side that you push in, but I think the most difficult part is getting around the AC lines, and we'll be going over that in a little bit. But before we get started, we're definitely going to have to remove the shroud from underneath the car so we can drain some of the radiator fluid out. And the undershroud is held on by a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts, so once you get those removed, you can easily slide the shroud out from underneath your car, and we can get it on level ground and start the project. Okay, once you get the shroud off the bottom of the engine, you have clear access to disconnect the two fans. And we talked about that location of it earlier, but basically it's just one tab that you have to push in. You can use your finger or maybe a small flathead screwdriver, but you just push this little tab right here and it's not too hard, and these things slide right out. So once you get those released, you kind of want to protect the end of that connection and keep any coolant from getting in there. So what I did was took some painter's tape and kind of taped over the connection so I didn't get any fluid in there. And then I kind of taped them up out of the way of the engine bay and kind of towards the front of the condenser up here, just so that we had any spillage, which we probably will, that we didn't get anything on these electrical connections. Make sure you put a drain pan underneath your car, and we're going to move that around as we disconnect the hoses, and that'll just help with any spillage from the hoses. We're not going to be losing a lot of coolant, but we will definitely lose some. So now I am just releasing the 4 bolts that hold the engine cover on, and we're going to get that out of the way because that'll give us more room to work with the thermostat as well as removing the fans. And the other thing we'll have to remove is this filter on the intake right here, this K&N aftermarket, but even if it's stock, it's the same thing. You just remove the filter head on the end here. At this point, we need to remove the mass airflow sensor, and all you have to do is squeeze a couple tabs together. It'll slide right out, and you can tuck it out of your way. And after that, we can remove the filter head, and then we can proceed from there. Now we have clear access down here to the thermostat and 3 hoses that we're going to need to remove. I'm going to give you a little better view here. And you just got the main hose that goes to the bottom of the radiator and hooks to the thermostat, one on top of it right here, this thinner hose, and then a little small hose to the left of the thermostat. And those are the 3 that we have to remove. There's a couple clamps holding this hose on right here, and that's not a problem to remove those. And just be careful not to damage your hoses when removing the clamps. And also don't forget to remove this little hose that goes to the overflow for the radiator and the 2 10mm bolts that hold the fan shroud on, one on either side. And then we can lift those out of the way. Okay, at this point I was unable to film the removal of the fans because of a pop-up rainstorm, but right here I just want to show you after the fact. Here's a tab here and one on the opposite side, and those just slip into the bottom of the radiator area. There's little mounts for those. So once you remove the 2 10mm screws up top, this whole thing just slides right out. Now the difficult part about this is that you're going to be doing it kind of one-handed. You're going to grab your left hand is going to lift this fan shroud up while your right hand is actually grabbing the AC lines and kind of pulling back so you don't hook the AC lines on this fan shroud. Now I'm going to give you a little shot of the little AC lines real quick, but basically that's the hardest part, is just getting around the AC lines and then trying not to damage your radiator as you pull this thing straight up and out. Once you get clear of the AC lines, it'll slide right out and you are ready to work on the thermostat. And you'll also have to remove 1 bolt to release the bracket for the AC lines. Okay, at this point we're ready to remove the 3 bolts holding in the thermostat, but you just need to be very careful that you actually get the 3 bolts that hold the thermostat in and not one that might hold on the timing chain cover. They're very, very close to the thermostat, and it's easy, and they're both 10 mil screws, so it's easy to confuse. So I just want to show you the orientation. This is how the actual thermostat sits. You've got 2 bolts on either side and 1 underneath. So just pay very close attention to where you've got your ratchet hooked up, and make sure that you remove only the bolts to the thermostat and not the timing chain cover. So let's take a look and see how well this 15-year-old thermostat held up. And actually, I'm pretty impressed because the main hose here does show corrosion on the inside and the outside, but no rust yet. And this smaller tube right here is definitely about to fail. It's starting to rust, and that was going to be probably the fail point of this thermostat. But overall, the integrity is still there, and I'm quite happy with that. On internally now, this thing is pristine. I was amazed at the condition of the internal part. You can see a little corrosion on the very center post, but otherwise this spring is immaculate, and real happy about the construction of this. It's well built, obviously. So it was time to change it though. And as far as the gasket goes, this gasket is still perfect. It's made of metal and it's quite sturdy, so this was not probably going to fail, but you still have to change it out. You don't want to reuse that, but overall this whole construction of this unit is great, and it held up over time. Very happy about that. Okay, now we're ready to reinstall the new thermostat. Make sure it's nice and lint-free before you replace it. And when you go to install the gasket, make sure you don't bend it when you're opening it. It's made of metal, so it's a little easy to kink, so be careful there. And the good news is it only fits on one way, so you're not going to put it on backwards. Now when you go to put the thermostat and the gasket back in to the front of the engine, just be careful that you don't misalign your gasket. It'd probably be a little easier to put a couple bolts through either side of the thermostat to help keep that gasket lined up. So just go nice and slow, and once you get the thermostat in there, you can hand tighten all 3 of your 10 mil bolts, and then we are ready to get the inch-pound torque wrench out, and we're going to torque it to 80 inch-pounds. But you're going to want to do a couple passes. You're not going to want to just torque it to 80 right off the bat. You want to go 40 inch-pounds all the way around, and then come back and do the 80 inch-pounds. I've got a little Tecton inch-pounds torque wrench, and I'll link it below, but this works pretty well, and I didn't have any problems there. Okay, now you're ready to reattach all your hoses and clamps, your reservoir, and then you can go ahead and drop in your cooling fan, bolt those on, attach the fans down below, go ahead and put your air filter back in, and we're ready to bleed the system. 350Zs are notorious for having air bubbles that are hard to get out, and they get trapped in there. So I'd highly recommend one of these spill-proof coolant funnels that actually sits right on top of your radiator and snaps into the cap. You're really going to have problems doing it without this. Once you get that on, you go ahead and open this cap back here, pour coolant in until it flows out of this little area, and then recap it. What that does is removes a bunch of the air bubbles in the system, but not all. So then you can refill the funnel, and then you're going to turn your car on, turn your fans on high, and your heater on high. And what we're going to do is bleed all the rest of the air out of the cooling system and out of the heater core. And this may take a while, could take up to 25 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes. You just keep doing this until you get all the air bubbles out. Really gonna have problems if you don't. I've had my temp gauge spike and peg to as hot as it can be and then come right back down again. I thought I'd blown my engine, but it was really just an air bubble in the system, so they're pretty hard to bleed. If you use this, it's going to make your life much easier, and I'll link this product down below. So if you have any questions about stock fans versus Mishimoto fans, please leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It'd really help my channel out, and we'd appreciate it over here at Z Speed. And just remember, keep on repairing.